Welcome, everyone. Today I have with me Lisa Cohen. She is the founder and executive director, chief executive officer of Visible National Trust, the first national universally accessible disability financial planning and wealth management solution for special needs families, which is a lot of words. I'm going to have Lisa unpack that for me. But Lisa, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start by jumping into the deep end. What do all those words I just read mean? What does it mean to be a national universally accessible disability financial planning and wealth management solution?
Yeah, well, it is a lot of words, as you rightly point out. But what we have tried to do with Visible, and what I think we've accomplished, we're very proud of it, is to create the simplest possible, most streamlined, best in class financial solution for families who need to make a financial plan because they have a loved one with a disability. So the history, which many of your listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with, is that it's been very difficult and challenging to pull together all the pieces that a family needs to have in place to do financial planning when they have a loved one with a disability in the family. And our goal is to streamline all of that and take advantage of all the technology, all the investment excellence, all of the talent, all of the compassion embedded in financial services, and make a universally accessible, meaning you can come to whoever you are and whatever piece of the process you're in, point in the process you're in, you can come to us and we will help you evaluate whether or not Visible is right for you at this point, and we'll evaluate that with you. And you'll be able to, if you choose to set up a trust with Visible, an individual trust account with Visible, you'll have complete access to all of your information about your Visible account all the time. Whenever you want to log into the portal in the dark of night, 2 a.m, you can't sleep, just like you do with your bank account now and your brokerage account if you have one of those. So our goal was really to take it out of make it completely uncomplicated as much as it can be, but much like any other financial services product that you would use.
That's awesome. And for the audience, can we define what a financial plan is? Because I hear people use a special needs plan, financial plan, and I just want to make sure we're all using the same language. So when you're talking about a financial plan, what are you talking about?
That's a great question. What I'm talking about is the idea that for every family, there are important milestones, and they're going to be specific to a family. And they may include planning for retirement, planning for travel, planning for a real estate purchase. For families who have a loved one with a disability, their list of financial goals and objectives and things they need to include also includes caring for that loved one. And so what I mean by a complete financial plan is that all of the things that are important to that family are included in the financial plan. And that's, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is Visible, do you have people on staff that are taking the family members through the financial planning process, where you're doing a fact finder and then you're getting a spending plan, figuring out what their goals are? Are you doing that part of it, or where does Visible come into the?
Yep, another great question. So we are not financial planners ourselves, and that's by design. Our focus is on building and maintaining and growing and serving our clients with Visible National Trust. It's a national pooled special needs trust, and that's our focus, is in being able to bring clients on, being able to support the families who are using this solution, and being able to provide excellent ongoing service to their professional advisors if they have someone in the loop, and to everybody involved in the family and in the life of the person with a disability. So many of the folks we work with have a professional financial advisors. Some don't, and we suggest that people think about talking to somebody about the complete picture, There are lots of other complexities in life that go beyond the disability financial planning piece. We certainly will provide as much information as we possibly can about the implications and the options. So we're not providing advice specific to anyone in particular. We're trying to provide as much information as we can so people can make informed choices.
Awesome. And what is a pooled special needs trust for people that don't know?
Well, and that's a lot of words too, right? So the Social Security Administration, as I'm sure many of your listeners are aware, likes a rule. And one of the rules they have is that money that is in a special needs trust that is being used to care for a person with a disability is not counted toward the asset limit. So the $2,000 or the $3,000 limit that a person can own, so to speak, and still be eligible for benefits. So you can put much more money in a trust, far in excess of the $2,000 or $3,000. I totally lost my train of thought.
With the rule that Social Security has in place, saying that the maximum asset level of 2,000.
So the rule that the Social Security Administration has in place is that if you put the excess assets over the $2,000 or $3,000 limit into a special needs trust, they don't see it. It's not counted as a resource. And there are multiple kinds of special needs trusts. You can have an individual special needs trust, which is written specifically for your family, and requires you to visit with an attorney to write the trust, and then kind of put the component parts of the trust together, including investment management, the trustee, designating a trustee, accounting services, and so on. A pooled special needs trust has all of those things already in place and operates a little bit differently in that there's one trust document, very similar to a retirement plan at work, where there's one plan document. And in the case of a pooled trust, everybody who has an individual trust account within the master trust, just like everybody has an individual retirement account within the company retirement plan. So it's a familiar structure to many folks.
I don't think I've ever heard it described like a retirement account. I like that analogy though, because it's easy to understand and it's accurate, right? Like when you have a 401k or 403b, you don't have your own 401k. You're using the company's 401k.
That's
you're picking
right.
your investments within that company,
Exactly.
but you're still, yeah. I like that analogy.
Yeah, it's almost exactly that. It's almost exactly that model, except instead of a company, there's a trustee. So it's a very simple moving parts.
And when you do the attorney on your own, I'm in Maryland, and I will tell you some of the attorneys I've seen are charging upwards of $6,000 or more to do a trust.
That's what I'm hearing as well.
And that gets to be expensive.
It does. It does. And the reality is that the trust, unless you do really need something that is specific to your family, which certainly can be the case, but most often what folks are focused on is making sure that the trust complies with the Medicare rules, Medicaid rules, and those don't change. Those are federal rules. So obviously we did that once, and then we can use that trust for multiple people. It's a much more efficient process, and it makes the administration, basically we can, in the same way that a retirement plan can, you have more buying power on behalf of the beneficiaries, and you can buy higher quality services at better prices. And we have experience in the industry that helped us do that. So we have some great partners in place, fantastic partners in BlackRock and in Huntington Bank. And we're very excited about that as well, because we're bringing really world-class, first-class partner providers to provide these services, and they're delighted and thrilled to be part of Visible.
Yeah, I mean, BlackRock is something you might find in your investment account if you're with Fidelity or Schwab or any of those other big names. BlackRock, you'll almost certainly see it, and if you don't have it in your accounts, you probably know somebody that does.
Exactly.
You know, they're
Exactly.
not a fly by night operation. They're a very well known operation.
They are, and we thought that was really important to families to ensure that people knew that these are trusted partner providers and that they're invested in being here and providing these services to the disability community, because they think it's important, and also because they're giving all of our families the respect that we deserve, by seeing us as a consumer market.
I like that, and I agree with you that, and what I think is key is getting what you deserve. You know, for too long, I feel that people with disabilities and their family, more so the people with disabilities, have been treated almost like second class citizens, where, oh, you don't have enough money, so we're not gonna do anything. We can't work with you, right? I see far too often organizations, trust companies that are saying, well, if you don't have $1 million or more in investable assets, you know, you're just not, we can't work with you. And I get it. There has to be a threshold. You know, trying to invest $5,000 is
Right.
very, very difficult. But $1 million is out of reach for a lot of people. So does Visible have a threshold or a bandwidth where they say this would be where you would be ideal? You know, this is if you're with this number, you know, keeping in mind that you are a company and you have margins, you have to
Right.
be profitable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are costs, to, the transaction processing and service. Those are primarily what our expenses are related to. So yes, we feel like we are best suited for families who are looking to accumulate somewhere in the neighborhood of several $100,000. That doesn't have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be, certainly doesn't have to be immediate at funding. The expectation is that people will accumulate. So they'll deposit some money up front, contribute some money up front to open the account. If they want to be in distribution, we ask that the number be around $50,000 so that we
And
can make those
distribution means they're taking money out, right?
Yes, yes. Yes, it means that, people are in all different places in their lives when they open trusts. There may be a settlement that comes in, court situated accident settlement that comes in, court ordered trust, and there's a chunk of money that comes in. That's one option. People can make a contribution. Families can make a contribution early in the life cycle of the trust, and some people are already in distribution and paying for services for their loved one with the trust, and they make ongoing contributions. So we can accommodate all of those models, whatever is happening for the family. One of the things that people will see as they onboard with us is we have a distribution planning process.
Okay.
So we spend some time when we're onboarding families, and we will repeat the process annually, or if something changes materially, making sure we understand what the expectation is for spending plans. In other words, what are we likely to be, what is the distribution pattern likely to look like? Are there any specific goals for the upcoming year? Is there going to be a tuition payment, a trip planned, things like that? And then is there some longer term implications? Are there longer term implications we should know about, a potential inheritance and insurance policy? So we want to understand, so that we can support the distribution process and the investment process accurately and make sure that there is enough liquidity in the account that we have money available to pay short and longer term bills in that trust account, and that we're investing accurately, whether it be for the shorter term or in order to accumulate more assets in the trust.
Awesome. So let's give the audience an example, so they can kind of get an idea what that might feel like. So I'll give you a scenario with me involved, and I'll make some numbers up just to get, for so the audience has an idea of what everything you just said means. I've been very open about the fact that, because I'm retired Navy, my son is going to get my pension, or 55% of my pension from the survivor benefit plan when I die. There's a good chance that if I die of something that is connected to my service and rated as VA disability, he'll get additional money. But let's say he's going to get $3,000 a month survivor benefit plan that goes into a first party trust.
Right.
And then I leave him $1 million life insurance policy, and the sale of my house. All of that comes together to be $1 million, right? Yep. So that goes into a third party trust.
Yep.
And for listeners, don't get too hung up on first party, third party. Just know that they exist and that most of you are going to need a third party. If you really want to do a deeper dive, I will include links to the interviews I've done in the past where we go over the difference between a first and third party, but I don't want to get too hung up on that here. So we would be sitting down with you to talk. So whoever's representing my son would be sitting down with you to talk about the distribution plan. And let's just say he doesn't have a housing voucher, or he has to pay rent, right? So that we know that's going to be an expense every month. Mm-hmm. So let's say he's getting $3,000 a month into the first party trust because of my pension, and he has to pay $2,000 a month out in rent. So that's one expense. And that's a repeating expense that is going to have to come up every month.
Yep.
And then food, we'll just say, for simplicity's sake, $200 per week, because of inflation. So he's spending $800 a month in groceries, right? So right there, it's pretty much a wash for what's going into the first party and coming out. So he's not really accumulating anything there. But he does have that lump sum from the sale of the house and the life insurance policy and maybe some retirement accounts, whatever, of $1 million.
Yep. And
with that $1 million, you could say, well, okay, he needs a new bed, or he needs, furniture, a new TV, right? Yep. So let's get him that. And then when people are like, well, what about his electric bill and things like that? Well, that can be his Social Security. He can, whatever he's getting from Social Security into his REPAYE account.
Yep.
That can cover the utilities. Yep. That can cover, cable, whatever.
Yep.
But we want to make sure we're taking money out of the first party trust.
Yep.
Because, if you die with money in there, Medicaid gets it back.
Exactly.
And then, but if he wants to take a trip every year to Six Flags or Disney World, whatever, then you would just say, okay, we'll set aside $2,000, whatever.
Yep.
Here you
exactly.
go, right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
So just so people know, right? And it's going to be whatever is important to the family.
Exactly.
If the family says we want our child to fly across the country to see the relatives 3 times a year,
right?
That's built into the budget.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's exactly what we need to know up front. Is we need to have an understanding of what the disabled beneficiary is experiencing, so that we know we can make a sound financial plan around the assets in the trust.
Yeah, and then to the point about the advisor, how does an advisor come in? So I have a financial planner.
Yep.
He and I work together. We meet once or twice a year, talk about what's going on, and he right now he's managing my retirement accounts.
Yep.
If he stayed involved, he would be able to advise on how would he interact with you with the trust?
Yep. So with a pooled special needs trust, another one of the rules is that the trustee is the enterprise that is responsible, the entity involved in the trust, responsible for determining the investment portfolios for the individual beneficiaries. So the financial advisor in this particular case does not manage the money inside the trust. That's a responsibility of the Visible National Trust team, and specifically the Visible Foundation. What your financial advisor is responsible for and can be responsible for, they can help you look at what other assets you have in your life and how you want to organize those among all of your kids or other relatives, and opportunities for insurance and other kinds of assets you can put into the trust. So that's one really helpful thing that they can do. And they can also be ideally, they know you and they know your family. And they're another point of contact and information in the loop. And they can keep an eye on they would, if you gave them access, they would have the ability to pull up statements, keep an eye on the spend, have an understanding of, when the investment, when contributions went in, what portfolio they're in. All of that would be something that the advisor could see. Again, they can't move the money around, but they would have full access to all of the information. And that is part of your financial picture as a family. And that really lets them have a 360-degree view of your entire financial life. And I always think that that is a really helpful thing for somebody to understand all of the moving parts that are factors in your financial planning and your financial thinking, and your life goals. I think it also helps cement for financial advisors who may not be working with special needs families all the time, every day, kind of helps cement how this all works for them. And they can be much more attuned to what's really going on, and in a format that's digestible to them, something like an account statement. They're very used to looking at that, and they don't need a translator device to be able to interpret that. And I think it's good to have, it's a communication tool and everybody can see what's going on. And I think that's really helpful.
Thank you for explaining that. From my point of view, what I really like about your model is very often families will have children who don't have disabilities and a child that does. So if the family is working with a financial advisor, the financial advisor can still and should still help the children without the disabilities, and the advisor can help the parents decide, okay, this is how much we're going to carve out to put into the Visible National Trust, and this is how much we're going to carve out either to a trust or to beneficiary statements to these other children. And I will make sure that this money is good, and I will serve almost as a trust protector on this money, right?
Exactly.
And do you allow other, if they have a sibling or a close friend that they want to be as a trust protector, is that still an option?
That is absolutely an option. We just need to know. And that's something we ask people to designate on the joinder agreement. A couple of things we want to know what role people are playing, so that we know if we're taking direction, we need everybody in the organization to be able to easily identify who those folks are, and then to give people access. So if any participant in a trust needs to receive paper statements, for example, as opposed to logging online, that kind of thing, we just need to know who's who. It's up to the family to sort themselves out, so to speak. But they don't have to be a blood relation to be an advocate. And we need to know who's doing what, and awesome. We'll incorporate that in. Yeah, absolutely. We feel that's obviously it's incredibly important. So we're flexible. If you need to update that at any point, you just let us know. That's all good.
Very cool. And how much does it cost to set up a trust with you guys? Is there when you sign a joint agreement, is there an upfront fee or what? Because we just said earlier that it can cost upwards of $5,000 or more, depending where you live in the country, to
Yep.
sit down with an attorney. So what's it going to cost to sit down with you?
Nothing. It doesn't cost anything. We do not charge a joinder fee. We feel really strongly, and we don't charge, there are no other fees associated with the account other than the annual management fee. The only other fee that you could have, that you are likely to have, is the tax fee. So for us to prepare the tax return for effective this year, the price is $175.
Oh, wow. That's a lot less than you're going to if you go to an accountant.
It's a lot less than my accountant charges, I'll tell you that. He thinks that number is pretty great. Yeah, he did laugh about that. Here we are in Massachusetts, the prices are a little bit different. So it's good to be national. Let's just say we can avail ourselves. Yeah, so we felt like it was really important to look at the cost structure across the whole financial services industry and say we know that prices are coming down, prices are compressing for payment services, for investment management services, for banking services. And we brought that perspective to the negotiating table. And that means that everybody who participates in the trust takes advantage of that. So there are no check charges. If you do need a check overnighted, instead of ACH electronically paid, we can pay electronically immediately once the transaction is approved. But if it's an emergency, you just need to let us know, and we can overnight a check. Also,
wow.
so it's we're operating like a financial institution in that way. Those are things. If you called you mentioned Fidelity. If you called Fidelity, those are services you would have available.
And it's the fiduciary way of doing things, right? I mean, you're doing things in the best interest of the individual, because these in my words, these garbage fees that other places are charging, they just eat eat away at the account, and they put barriers up so people don't feel like they can take their own money out. They can't get their own money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just completely unnecessary. I mean, in today's world of electronic, you make your requests for distribution electronically. That's super easy. It's an app on your phone or on the website. Enter in the information about where the payment needs to go. We do, of course, have to approve it formally, as is the nature with trusts. And once it's on its way, it goes out in days, which again, that is what you would expect from a financial institution.
Yeah, and for the listener who's not aware, if you're not careful and you don't really make sure that the reason you're using the money is an authorized reason, your trust could lose its protections.
It could lose its protection, and that meaning that the result would be benefits. You could jeopardize.
Yeah, so it's benefits. Not Lisa and her team saying we want to micromanage how you're spending your money. It's really, we want to make sure you don't lose your Medicaid waiver, you don't lose your staff, you don't lose your SSI.
Exactly. That's the most important thing. So our goal is to do two things. It's to steward funds for care of a person with a disability, and it's to maintain benefit eligibility. And those
things. So say those two things again. Number one was what?
Steward funds for care.
Steward funds for care.
Yep. And maintain benefit or ensure benefit eligibility.
Ensure benefit eligibility. I want to make sure we highlight that, because that's when you have an individual with significant enough disabilities to qualify for federal benefits.
Yes,
that's exactly what you should be worried about.
You should be worried about that, and you should also be very mindful, given the cost of healthcare, the what I like to call the stuff happens factor, the law of unintended consequences, and you may not be in a situation where your family is accessing benefits right now, your loved one, but life can be many years, and many things can happen in that time frame, and we think it's incredibly important to make sure that there's a mechanism in place, which is what we're designed to do here, to make sure that's always something that you can access.
Thank you. Are you, as a company, are you equipped to handle real property like houses and stuff like that, or other assets like cars or other things that people might want to have owned by the trust?
We are. We can. We're primarily focused on supporting real estate and transportation. So we're not focused on art, things of that nature, but the practical things that the real assets that people need in their lives, those do have different requirements for accounting than investments. Like we're working with BlackRock on, so there may be little bit of extra expense related to a real asset like that in somebody's account, but we absolutely can handle that.
Awesome. So just as a recap, you are a pooled trust, which means you are a trustee for special needs trusts. And instead of families going to an attorney to set up their own trust, they're coming to you and signing what's called a joinder agreement.
Yep.
Which is basically it outlines what the trust does, who does what, and what they're gonna pay for it. You don't charge when they come in to sign. Every investment out there, even these Fidelity Zero funds, are going to have fees in the investments. You may not see them, but I promise you they're there. Right. Get a paper statement, open it up, you'll see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're not doing this for free. There's still going to be investment fees. There's still based on how much assets are under management.
So the total, the fee that we of course do charge a fee. I wish that we could not, but alas, it is not so. So we do charge an annual fee based on trust assets, and we're very proud to say it is effective in 2023, and it may change, but it's not expected to wildly deviate. It's at a 1.37% of trust assets, or 137 basis points, just depending on, I tend to think in basis points as a financial brain, but
right. So the families out there, that would be, let me get my calculator out. So let's say, you brought over a $500,000 account.
Yep.
And you said, okay, well, I am paying 1.37. That would be $6,850 a year. But yep. You are not writing them a check. This is coming out of the trust assets. Exactly. And this is happening in your retirement accounts.
Yes.
I want to be very clear about this. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean you're not paying it. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Now we're using, to your point, there are a couple dynamics that happen. We're using the core investment portfolios are ETFs, exchange traded funds, which are an extremely low cost solution. Those are the portfolios that BlackRock, we're working with BlackRock on those portfolios. So that's fantastic. Those are priced 5 and 6 basis points, and a little more on the cash account, which is usual with cash accounts. Huntington Bank also is providing a whole range of services, and their pricing is extremely competitive, and their pricing goes down as the business grows, and everybody benefits from that. So it's, trust. If you do go do business with a big bank, Bank of America, we'll pick on them for a moment. Most big trust companies will charge 1% as a trust fee. That's a pretty stable number that's been out there for a while. We're charging a little bit over that for this very specialized service.
So, the other thing that those other places are going to charge is they're going to charge an onboarding fee. Yes. They're going to charge you for an overnight. They're going to charge you. They are going to nickel and dime you every time you want to do something.
Yep. The other thing that's important that we feel strongly about is we do not retain funds. Many pool trusts, all pool trusts have the option to retain funds when a trust closes and it still has money in it.
Clarify what kind of trust?
Pooled special.
Well, no, I mean, but it's the first party usually, right?
No.
Okay.
It is. I'm sorry. Maybe it is. Yes. Is it the first party? Yeah. We don't do that. Right, because of the Medicaid lien. Yeah. So generally, the pool trusts have the option to retain funds. The idea originally, as I understand it, was to contribute to the operating expenses of the pool trust. We don't do that. We will not ever do that. We think it's important that the funds either go back to Medicaid, Medicare, and that any excess funds go to remainder beneficiaries. It doesn't, that is the right thing to do. And we also think there are some broader investor protection thoughts behind that people should know upfront where their money is going. And it can be a bit of a surprise at the end to find out that there's somebody else in the mix. When you're setting things up, your mind is in one place, and at the end, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and again, for the listener, the average listener who is listening to this podcast is going to have a third-party trust. And for the third-party trust, you're allowed to have a contingent beneficiary that when your loved one dies, the money will go from the trust into the contingent beneficiary, whoever you leave behind. First-party trusts are set up differently. They are set up so that states can recoup the money that they paid to provide care for the individual with disability. That's the Medicaid lien that Lisa was saying. So Medicaid has first dibs on whatever money is left in the account, but Medicaid can only take the money that was used to pay for the individual's care from the time they went on Medicaid. So if you have private health insurance and that private health insurance pays for the majority of your child's care, and then your Medicaid is covering the copays, and maybe over the lifetime of the child, it covers it with $10,000. And then you have $100,000 left in the account when your child dies. Well, that means Medicaid will get to $10,000. And the example Lisa just gave about other trusts, they would get $90,000. They would get the difference. And what Lisa has said is, Visible isn't even giving you the option of donating that money to Visible. They want it to go back to whoever the family or whatever, maybe you have another nonprofit you want to donate it to. They are not going to keep it after Medicaid gets their clawback.
Exactly.
Did I say that right? Yeah.
You did. Thank you. I think you said it better than I did, and I appreciate that. That's exactly right.
Awesome. Yeah. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? Is there any, by the ways, last minute thoughts? What else do you have?
I think you've done an outstanding job of covering all the things that I think are most important about Visible. And I think I would just say, we're so excited to have built Visible and to have it exist in the market and as a service. We, talking to families, I get such wonderful feedback and such positivity amidst all the struggles and the things that happen with all of our families. And I'm just really happy and proud to be able to do this one thing to make life easier. It's certainly not everything that could be done, but it's one piece. And I'm very glad that we're able to contribute in this way.
Awesome. And where can people find you? What's your website? Are you on the social media?
Excellent question. The easiest way to find us for the most complete information is by visiting our website, which is visiblenationaltrust, all one word.com.
Awesome. I'll include a link in the show notes. And then if people want to visit you on social media, do you have like the
We're
sounds like an old dude, the Instagram, yeah. The Facebook.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We're feeling our way through social media, and I'll tell you why. We're very concerned about the toxicity of social media right now, and we're stepping back a bit. We have been on Twitter and Instagram or X now, and we're just a bit concerned about where all that's going, and we don't want anybody in our orbit to ever be exposed to anything that isn't right. And so we're being very careful about that. When there's a little more clarity, we look forward to participating fully. But right now we got to pick our spots, and we're still picking.
No, I can appreciate that, Lisa. I'm giving a lot of thought to leaving X. The only thing I'm really ever active on myself is LinkedIn.
Right. We're very active on LinkedIn as well. Yes. So you can look for us there. We have a company page for Visible National Trust. And I personally invite people to follow me. I post frequently about what's going on here and sharing news. So that's all great. That seems like a really solid platform for communicating with people. But some of the other platforms just seem a little uncertain right now.
I would agree. No, thank you. Thank you again and I'll have links to your LinkedIn page, your website. I'll have links to a couple episodes that we used that I've already done about the different types of special needs trusts, because we didn't spend a lot of time talking about first and third party, but I've had attorneys on that we just did a deep dive on that. So
yes, and that's great. I will let the attorneys. I'm not an attorney. I just play one on TV. I don't even play one on TV. So I think it's great to, we rely on our counsel, and we believe people should. And so that's great.
Thank you for joining me, Lisa.
Thank you.